What's up, everybody? How to Tech, bringing you a disassembly of a Huawei Honor 5X. Some of the tools we're going to use is a couple of nylon spudgers, a Torx T2, a small Phillips screwdriver, and then a couple guitar picks to help us pry this phone open. So one of the first things you want to make sure you do is power the device off and use a SIM card eject tool to pull out the SIM card and microsd card slot areas. Once those have been removed, we can go ahead and take our Torx T2 driver and go ahead and undo the bottom two screws by the charge port of the device. Now that that is completed, we'll do the hardest task of the entire phone portion here, which is remove the back off this. It's pretty challenging to get this to remove. I'm going to get it started with a guitar pick here and work our way around. The bottom portion where the speaker port is plastic, and then the side portions are metal. So the plastic portion down here at the charge port is a little bit easier, a little bit more flexible. The side portions where it's actually the metal of the phone is very difficult to get to remove from the frame of the device. There's some metal portions on the frame that dig into the metal portion of the back, and it makes a very solid clip. So we're just going to run our guitar pick down here, and you want to be pretty careful. This is pretty thin aluminum here, and you can bend it if you get too crazy with trying to pull it apart. So we're just going to use our nylon spudger, see if we can't get a little bit of an area started here. And this is what you actually don't want to do, is grab it and just start pulling it apart. That will bend a little bit in some of the weaker points. Right in between the power volume area is where you're going to have the most issue. So you want to get it started about the same on both sides. So the opposite side has a pretty good amount of starting on it. There's just a clip I can't get undone on this side. And I just broke a guitar pick. We'll just use a flatter side of it. And there's a clip right up in here that I'm just having a little bit of struggle with. So use our spudger just to get us a little bit more leverage on the back here. And one thing that I seem to find that was slightly helpful is to get it started underneath and use it to pry up a little bit. We'll use one of these opening tools. And honestly, I hate these things, as it just lodges your plastic portions into the back of the phone here, which is what it just did. You can see it's all stuck in there. Now I could have just skipped around and said, oh yeah, you just remove the back just like so, but that is not how this works on this phone. This phone is pretty tricky. You got to think like HTC style difficulty in taking this back off. So maybe the M8 would be a comparable phone. So again, we'll use our guitar pick and just try to run it down this side here. Just can't get it to unclip. I've got it dug in there pretty deep. There we go. So you can see that silver portion right here. This clip is what was doing all that holding on. So now we can use our pick here to help us kind of pry it apart. We'll slide it down the back side here, just being gentle. We're right on top of the battery right now. That'll give us a little bit more leverage to work down the side here. You want to be very careful right here. This is about the maximum amount that you want to bend the back of the phone. Any more and you'll actually bend the rear casing on it. So now the clips are off and we're just holding on to the top portion. So we're just going to try to wiggle it back and forth on the top here to get it to free out of the housing. Perfect. And there we have it. At the back off of the phone, you can see all the internal components. Now looking at the phone itself, you can see that these metal portions here are how it clips onto the device. You can see exactly where they're at to make it a little bit easier for you to remove it. You can try to push against these and pop the back off. You can also replace the power button, volume button, which is one assembly piece on the side here. It's just a little plastic portion that slides in. Have our fingerprint sensor here, which is square. We have some pink tape here that we're going to go ahead and remove. This is covering up one of the screws for the battery charger, and also looks like a bracket that's covering a couple other connectors. So we're just going to peel this back and put it near where we remove it so we know exactly where it came from on the back of the device. Next, we're going to grab our small Phillips screwdriver and undo the screw holding the bracket down. Now we can go ahead and pull the bracket up and set it to the side. So the first cable connector we're going to undo is the battery. Then we have the power button, volume button cable here as well, which we can flip the connector up and pull this out. So if you're looking to replace just this portion, you can just go ahead and pull it off the side of the frame here and put your new button on with a little bit of adhesive. Slide it back in and you're done. We'll pop this connector off here, which is the display cable connector. It actually runs underneath the battery. Now we have two additional screws for a bracket on the opposite side of the phone. We'll go ahead and do both of these two screws. We go ahead and pop up the bracket. It actually has a connection underneath it for the sensor, which is clipped onto the logic board. So as you pull it up, you might feel it unclip, and that is normal. You can see that it's got a little adhesive holding it down. You can pop up the cable that runs to the charge port board at the bottom of the phone. And as playing with this, you can go ahead and remove this little bracket from the back of the ribbon cable here for the fingerprint sensor, which you can pry off the sensor itself. I didn't do it in the video, but it can be removed. We're going to go ahead and pull off all of the screws on the bottom portion of the phone down here. Now for the fingerprint sensor, it kind of sits in a little tray on top of the housing up there. And if you were looking to just replace that, you would need to really pry it out of the little tray. We'll undo all the screws on the bottom here. And you always want to make sure you keep track of exactly where your screws came from so you can put them back in the exact spot. At some phones, the 0.01 millimeter of a screw can make a difference, especially Apple devices. You can see on this device that has the two black screws next to the charge port and the remaining silver screws. That could be different lengths, so just make sure you keep track of them and keep them sorted out where they came from so you can put them back in the exact place that you removed them from. Now with that done, we can go ahead and remove the loudspeaker portion off the bottom of the phone. We can undo the cables on the bottom of the charge port and put this aside. I'm really happy they made this a separate portion of the board, so you can replace this little tiny portion down here if you have a charge port issue, which is a pretty common error on phones. Now we can go ahead and start removing the daughter board down here on the bottom of the device. Just grab our nylon spudger, and it looks like it's sitting on a couple of posts, and it is adhered down as well. So just being gentle, we're going to start working it up and start to loosen it from the adhesive behind it. See, there's adhesive right there. With that done, we can go remove all the screws from the logic board at the top of the device. We have a screw underneath the litmus paper up here at the upper right hand corner. We'll remove that. I have one additional screw right here to the right of the camera that we will need to remove before pulling the logic board out. Now with that done, we can work on pulling up the board itself. It's got a little bit of thermal paste behind it which holds it down, and this little plastic bracket up here does clip into the top of the phone slightly, and it has a little piece of adhesive holding it to the logic board. So you may have to wiggle it a little bit to get it to come free. Here's our thermal paste here. It's going to be cooling the chip. You can remove the rear camera and the front facing camera. They snap off just like the majority of the connectors on the board. Now we can go ahead and start on removing the battery. Now there's a couple pieces on here that I'm going to leave in, the vibration module and the earpiece speaker. Trying to use a flat tool would be the best option to remove the battery and get it started. I would suggest using a spudger like this, something plastic. You could also use gift cards, credit cards, anything of that nature to help you get underneath it and get it started. You can use the spudgers as well. But you want to be careful not to deform the battery too much. You definitely do not want to puncture the battery. We've got it started, and it looks like there's adhesive on the opposite side of the battery as well. We'll work on removing that here in a second. There is a cable that runs underneath the battery for the display, so be very careful that you don't damage that when using tools to pull the battery up. So just taking a peek to see where the adhesive is, and it's right here on the opposite lower side, right about where to the right of the recycle icon. So I'm just pushing the spudger underneath it just to help it loosen up a little bit. There we go. And you can see the outline of where the adhesive is at. Looks like there's a pull tab to get the battery started, but you would still have to deal with the adhesive on the opposite side as well. Now, if you are looking to do a display only and keep the mid-section housing, all you would need to do at this point is heat the display up with a heat gun and run a tool along the sides of the phone. So heat it up and then use something like an iSesamo tool. I like to use playing cards once I get it started. Also use a suction cup. If you're looking to retain the display, just be careful of the ribbon cable underneath. And if you would like to see examples of this, you can check out videos like my Nokia Lumia 830, 929, 930 icon. You can also check out the LG G3 videos. All those have display removes in the same manner that we require to remove this one. Now, if you are removing the mid frame and getting a whole device replacement, make sure you move over the grommets, the vibration module, the earpiece speaker as well. If you want to check out the reassembly, I'll throw that down in the description below. Anyways, I appreciate you watching the video. Subscribe, like, share, do all that crap. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next one. Peace.